Yesterday, I mentioned two pieces, one by Rui Tejera, one by Nate Silver, both men of the left, talking about how the left is increasingly intolerant of anyone who disagrees with them. The practitioners and peddlers of tolerance are the most intolerant people. And what they say is that they are intolerant of intolerance, but it just coincidentally turns out that everything they don't like, they decide is a sign of intolerance, so they don't have to like it. They've justified their intolerance in that way. They no longer have empathy for the American people. They no longer connect to the American people. They no longer relate well to the American people. The Democrats are kind of out to lunch on this stuff, and some of them know it. They're raising red flags, and they are condemned and criticized for it. The New York Times' Nate Cohen, who's their data and polling analyst, has a piece up. Why are Democrats losing ground among non-white voters? 5 theories. Here are the 5 theories. Number 1, it's about the moment. Biden, his age, the economy, and abortion. Number 2, theory number 2, Democrats are too far to the left. Theory number 3, Democrats aren't delivering a progressive agenda. Theory number 4, it's Trump. And theory number 5, it's about a new generation. Do you know where most Democrats lean on this? Nate Cohen is just looking at the data and he's saying there are 5 theories. You talk to different people, you get different theories. Here are the 5 common threads, the 5 theories. Do you know the number one theory on the Democratic side is that they're not progressive enough. They're not progressive enough. But I have to tell you, in some parts of the country, that is true. In some parts of the country, it's true. But in most parts of the country, it's not. In fact, it's the opposite, that Democrats are too progressive, particularly on social issues. And here's what you have to understand. I am a fiscal conservative. I believe limited government is better. I am a fiscal conservative. I am a conservative in general because I am a Christian. I believe my worldview is predicated upon the fact that we live in a fallen world and we are all sinners. And so I want as few in charge of me as possible. Therefore, I am a conservative who supports limited government. But I also have to acknowledge, and this is something I always say when I ran political campaigns, this is something I would tell candidates all the time. Know when you're in the minority, even when you think you're right. It's a lesson that candidates have to be taught because a lot of people think, you yourselves often think if you believe something, probably most people agree with me. Actually, most people probably don't. Know when you're in the minority, even when you think you're right. You've got to take that to heart. You've got to understand that oftentimes you think you're right about something. You got to know when you're in the minority. I know I'm in the minority on being a fiscal and social conservative. There's actually not a huge market for it. The problem is progressives think they are in the majority, that everybody is a social and fiscal liberal. That's not true. Most Americans are socially conservative and fiscally progressive. Most Americans are Christian Democrats. Most Americans want government handouts and a government hand on the bathroom door keeping a boy out of their daughter's bathroom. The Democrats forget that. Like I've always known, and this is the thing that gets me, like I want to fight for, like I want a government shutdown. I actually want a government shutdown. I think government shutdowns are good for our liberty. When Congress can't do anything and the executive isn't at work, we're free. Most people don't. I have to remember that. A lot of my conservative friends don't understand that they have to temper their fiscal conservatism, that we can advance it, we can push it, but we have to be careful how. It's why, for example, there are a lot of conservatives out there right now who have taken the burn it all down approach. Colton Moore is a state senator in Georgia he's now coming after, I think, the wife of a member of the state senate. He's a state senator. He's claiming that the state legislature could somehow stop Fawny Willis, the prosecutor in Fulton County. They don't have the power to. They don't have the votes to, let alone the power to. But he doesn't care. He's willing to burn it all down. He's willing to burn every bridge and burn everything down because he simply doesn't care anymore. He doesn't think the system works, so he can fundraise off of it, be an entertaining state senator, and build a loyal following to go on and run against Marjorie Taylor Greene for Congress or some such, raise somebody else. He doesn't actually care to get anything done. And part of that is temperamentally, he, like me, is a fiscal conservative too. He doesn't want government to do anything. The problem is too many of my friends along the way who share my ideology, who are social and fiscal conservatives both, who don't want government to do much, who want to restrain government, oftentimes they've gotten to the burn it all down phase because they think they're in the minority. They suddenly realize it. They're not going to get done what they want to do. Might as well burn it all down. But when you burn it all down, when you clear cut the forest, when you do everything, there's nothing left to protect you from the other side. And the other side does it with gusto. There's this growing element on the right now that believes that we might as well just hand it all over to the left and let them bankrupt us and let China become dominant, and we'll pick up the pieces and rebuild society, except you won't. And the reason you won't is because people like government. You and I may not, but people generally like government. It makes them feel safe. So you have to be diplomatic in how you advance your fiscal conservatism. The problem on the Democratic side is that they really think that everyone is like them, socially liberal. And that's not true at all. In fact, Hispanic and Black voters tend to be the most socially conservative people in the country. They tend to really take seriously this guy named Jesus. They tend to really believe there's a guy named Jesus. They tend to take him and his word seriously. And they tend to believe in a worldview that says God made us man and woman. They believe that. You might not. You may say, well, I'm not a Christian. They can't impose this on me. Doesn't matter. They're going to if they can, because Black and Hispanic people in this country are overwhelmingly socially conservative, vastly more socially conservative than a white person with a college degree. And this, again, I'm in the minority here. I am a white guy with not just a college degree, but I got a postgraduate degree. I'm working on more postgraduate work in seminary. I'm in the vast minority to be culturally conservative and to be highly educated. Not that you would actually realize I am, but I do have a law degree. I got a bachelor's degree. I'm working on an MDiv. I was working on my PhD till I went back into the master's program. Self-study was not a good thing for me. But nonetheless, and yet I'm socially conservative, and the data suggests that the more degrees you have, the more liberal you are. And that's not the case for me. If anything, having encountered the humanity of academia, it's made me more conservative. It's made me hate humanity more to realize how fallen the world really is. Democrats don't seem to get that. There is something else, though, to one of the other points that Nate Cole makes is it is about the time right now. It's about the time. We are in a state of the economy where rich white progressives are becoming more progressive and they're becoming more Democrat, and Black and Hispanic voters feel pushed aside and pushed out. The amount of rich white people I know who are lecturing the rest of America online about how good the economy is offensive to me as a well-off white person. The lack of basic empathy for other Americans is absurd. I make a good living. Gas prices affect me. I travel a lot. Gas prices cut into my income. But I recognize I'm very blessed. Most of my friends aren't. Most of my friends don't have the income level that I have. And they're struggling to get their kids through school. Some of them are having to homeschool. Some of them are cutting costs to pay for private school. Some of them are sucking it up, putting their kids in public school, and they're not happy about it, and they're struggling. And these friends are not just white people. And the Democrats want to lecture them all that actually you've got it real good. Actually, the economy is doing well. Actually, you should be grateful for Joe Biden. They're not grateful to Joe Biden because they knew what a gallon of milk costs before Joe Biden was president. They know what it costs now. They know what it was like to fill up their car when Trump was president. They know what it's like to fill up now with Joe Biden as president. They don't like being lectured about just go buy an electric car. They can't afford a second car payment. They can't afford to get rid of the current car. The economy matters. The economy is an issue. And these people are really clueless. And then this idea about Trump. I don't necessarily think it's Trump per se, but it's Trump began to articulate a message for the GOP that connected better with the working class. There were messages. Liberals heard what they thought were racist dog whistles. Black and Hispanic voters didn't. Do you know the number one most vocal opponent of illegal immigration in this country is a legal immigrant from Central and South America? And Democrats tell them they're racist. No, they went through the process. They know what it's like. They know what the pain in the butt is to do it, but they still did it. They didn't cross legally. And now you're going to call them racist because they think the border needs to be secured? You're going to lecture them, oh, well, you came here. You got to let others come here. No, they came here legally. They don't want people coming here illegally. So the overall issue here of why are Democrats failing to connect with non-white voters? They lack empathy these days. They lack empathy for the immigrant who did everything legal, so resents the illegals coming here. They lack empathy for the person who's struggling just to make ends meet, who can't get their kids a good education, who worries about their children's future and education. They lack empathy for the person struggling with costs at the grocery store. They lack empathy for people. And Donald Trump actually comes across as a very empathetic person. So do most of these other Republicans who get the bottom line issues for non-white Americans these days, where the rich, secular, white person has increasingly become a liberal in a bubble with other white liberals and no longer relates to people who aren't white, highly educated, and living in a cultural bubble. And that means Democrats are going to have a hard time, not just in the upcoming election, but several elections thereafter, unless they do a course correction, which I don't think white, progressive, secular atheists are capable of doing, because they would have to admit they were wrong. And these people are the least likely people in America to ever admit they're wrong.